AdventuREalty from the Studio podcast. So we give you guys a lot of content about, where to go, what to eat, where to live in Southern Indiana and Louisville. So with this podcast, our goal is to get the people of the area too. So we want to be that expert for you guys. So we sell houses, but we know you guys don't want to see nothing but real estate content. So we want to give you good, useful content for you. So today I'm with the 2011 National Wrestling Coach of the Year. He is an ISHWCA 2022 Hall of Fame coach, a USA Gold Certified coach, 2021 Strength Coach of the Year for the state of Indiana, 3-time USA Worlds Team coach, and the owner of 12 wrestling sectional championships at Jeffersonville, and the longest-tenured coach at Greater Clark County Schools, which is pretty crazy. Danny Struck, how's it going, man?
Good. You basically listed all my gray hair.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, how did you get to this point? Where are you from? Where did you, how do we get here?
Quick story. Let's see. I was from Jennings County High School, went to University of Indianapolis. We call it the Harvard of the Midwest, if you didn't know that, or I do. I dubbed it. And I went to New Palestine for a year, then Greencastle High School for 3 years, and I needed a job. I was the youngest school teacher in the corporation, and they cut me, budget cuts. They cut all the youngest teachers. So I was driving from an interview in North Carolina, Raleigh, North Carolina. I made the 12 hours back, and I was crossing the bridge to come over, and I was like, oh, Jeffersonville High School. I'll just walk in and hand my resume. And a neat guy to have on here might be Ralph Scales. He was the longest tenured athletic director in Jeffersonville School's history. And I think the complex is named after him. And I walked in and put my resume on his desk, and he was on the phone, and he looks at my resume, and I don't know who he was talking to. He says, should I hire Danny Struck, because he didn't know my name, or the guy he was talking about? And he happened to be on the phone with my high school football coach, and he said, hire Danny. I still don't know who they got rid of. And he just put it down and goes, do you want to teach here? And I said, yeah. And
that's a really cool story.
Just by crossing a bridge and dropping a resume off.
Yeah, that's impressive, because I know that applies, I think, to a lot of people. That story can be something that teaches a lot of people something. I myself am guilty of. Step out, throw the resume on the desk. Why not? Go knock the door, make the phone call, do whatever you got to do that might be a little bit out of your comfort zone, and it's led to 23 years of coaching. I was never going to stay. Jeffersonville's changed a lot since then. Yeah. You being here your whole life, downtown wasn't nice. Oh no. And I was never going to stay. And then it started changing. And I'll give a credit to Mayor Mike Moore. Like, man, Jeffersonville's amazing now. And when I first got here, even downtown Louisville, there was no Yum Center, there was no 4th Street, there was no Main Street, and the area changed so much. Every year I gave it a chance, and now it's my home for 23 years and love it. Yeah. So reference our talk with Scott Hawkins about that. We've been talking about. I was just telling him that I can't earmark the exact time all this started happening, but man, Jeffersonville is so much different now than it was when I was a kid. I mean, the walking bridge and all the stuff going on downtown, and like you said, even going into Louisville, it's incredible. So, what about wrestling past? What got you into wrestling? Did you wrestle as a kid? Did you wrestle in high school or college or anything?
I wrestled in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, I think, and then I was like, this is dumb. I'm never going to do this. And none of my friends did. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work. And so my freshman year of high school, the basketball coach looks at me and says, you look like a wrestler. And if I stand up, I don't know why anyone would say that. Then I was like, man, my buddies in class, I was going to a new school, Jennings County, and I had all new kids in classes because I didn't go to their middle school. And, friends said you should try wrestling, and I was like, well, they say I look like a wrestler. And even after my first year there, kind of like my first year here, I wasn't going to do it. I was 0-6, hated it, and but my friends said you got to come back and you can't let your friends down. So even to this day, the number one recruiting tool I use is, do you want to make new friends? I think when we really break it down to sport, to everything, it's your mom was a longtime choir teacher. Like, being friends, having a culture is why we do it. And that's what stuck me with it.
I think it's great. I think wrestling in particular, I've always said I'd love to get my son into it. I'm trying to talk him into getting into your all's program, but I think it's a good confidence builder for kids. You know, there's something to having you don't want your kid to go out and fighting people, but it's good to know you could defend yourself, and it kind of adds a little confidence to especially a guy like me who's kind of littler, and so I think it's good for him. But so let's go into your coaching career. You're the longest tenured coach in Greater Clark County Schools. That's pretty crazy. That's a big school system. 23 plus years. I can think of a lot of coaches who've been coaching for a long time, and you're the longest. So 23 years. What keeps you going for 23 years?
The kids. I mean, I've like any coach. I'm not saying this to like brag. Like any coach, you have opportunities to move, college or a glamorous high school. You know, I don't know what I mean by that, but people do, know what I mean? The Indianapolis suburbs and the kids, I always know like, man, I got a 6th grader coming up. I've worked with him since kindergarten and I can't let him down. And so for the same for me as kids staying together, they keep me in it. We use the word love a lot in my program. Faith is sitting back here behind the camera, and I can't tell her to-be husband, congrats, how many times, I've told him I loved him if he was struggling with college and he's been there for me when I need him. So that love for the kids is number one. Then the kids make the community. So we tell the kids all the time that love means commitment, because some of them have never heard that they're loved before. And I'll say, well, you committed to me? And they'll say, yeah. And I'll go, that means love. We love each other. And I think people get scared of that word, but it's not the wrestling. It's not the football I've coached. It's not the weightlifting. I love the kids, and what I have in common with them are those 3 things. Yeah. They don't like my music. I'm almost 50. They don't like my movies. I'm not black and white movies, but we have different interests there. But those 3 things we have in common, and I think that's why every coach should coach.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be something like that, because I'm going to go out on a limb and say it wasn't for the money that you're doing it.
Not.
So, I mean, Faith, we're just talking before you got in here. We're just talking about some of the programs you do, and I mean, you must spend, the number of hours spent at that school. You're there from morning through school time till, I think she said your kids program goes 6 to 8:15 a couple days a week.
Yeah, luckily, I've finally, after being here so long, I got 3 former wrestlers running it. Her fiance Luke being one of them, and unfortunately, while that allowed me to not be at elementary, I just pick up the next program. Right. And so I'm at school just as long. I was talking to Luke the other day, and I was like, you don't think I just leave you with this, do you? And he was like, no, I know you're busy. And a 90-hour week is kind of the norm. I feel like I'm retiring if it's a 50-hour week. But yeah, if you love it, there's the quote, if you love it, you never work a day in your life. Right. I won't say that quote is true, because there's definitely days I don't like it, but I love it.
Yeah. Well, so we've talked about what motivates you to keep moving through this, and it's the kids and the love for the kids and all that stuff. So what do you do to motivate the kids to keep going through? Because, they're putting in these hours too, and I'd venture to say wrestling's probably a year-round kind of thing with strength and conditioning and everything else. And I know I can't get motivated to get up and go to Planet Fitness a couple days a week. So how do you keep these kids moving on?
Well, about 13 years ago or 15 years ago, I lose track of it. We had a different principal, Mr. Sexton. He asked me if I wanted to run the strength program, and while our weight room's not glamorous, but we're getting a new one, he said, get what you want. So I did fundraisers, and we filled the weight room, and being able to have kids during the school day. So I run 6 strength conditioning classes during the school day, really helps their time management after school, because now your mom being a choir teacher, you're familiar with state and ensemble. Sure, yeah. So I had 2 kids wrestling sectionals, and luckily their regional competition was at Floyd Central. They wrestled in sectionals. One of them was in the finals, drove straight over to Floyd. He got 3 gold medals in his solo and his ensemble, and he wouldn't have been able to do that if he didn't have weightlifting during the day, because he'd be lifting weights after school. So motivating them, for me, yes, they wrestle year round, but like in the fall, I try to get every single one of them in a fall sport. I think I have 22 football players on the team, 9 cross country runners, 5 soccer players. So our fall, I really try them to get motivated in something else.
Right.
So we celebrate their anchor club, their Air Force ROTC, and being able to celebrate them as with their other interests really helps. And then just like teaching them what success is. Like if we're talking wrestling, beating a kid that's not very good really bad doesn't mean they got better, and losing to a kid that's really good doesn't mean they got worse. Yeah. So trying to really stress personal self-improvement in all that they do is something we talk about mostly, and I think that helps with motivation. Yeah,
that's huge. So one of the things I learned about you, and this is pretty crazy. Through wrestling, you've coached in 25 countries in 48 states. Is that legit?
Pretty close.
So what took you to those countries? So like what were you doing? That's a lot of countries.
Now, some of those are with Mr. Hawkins taking students. Okay. So I just say wrestling because they're students. And to me, like, I have a love of travel.
Hey, I don't care if it's wrestling or not, just being to 25 different countries in 48 states, period.
Mr. Hawkins on last, and I think he just hit 50. His goal was 50 countries in 50 years. I got 2 years to make up 25 countries. But my goal is to hit the last 2 states through wrestling. And anyway,
what are the missing states right now?
It's either Vermont or New Hampshire. I have to look at the route we drove to a meet. So I know it's one of the 2. And then Oklahoma, which is a wrestling state. So it's crazy. I've never been there. And it's going to be easy to pick up a wrestling tournament there. But how did the travel come about? So when I was in high school, my high school wrestling coach, I've copied a lot of his philosophies on doing more than one sport. I played football growing up, and my dad was my football coach growing up. And then, like kids do, because my dad's amazing, I quit football because he puts too much pressure on me, and he did not. And so I started playing tennis. And then when he quit coaching football to come to my tennis matches, I remember my last tennis match of the year. I'm not proud of it. I threw the racket over the fence and was like, "You play." And I went to play football, and just like a fool. But my high school wrestling coach would make me play football if I didn't. And then my favorite high school football coach, it was the assistant one, and he wrestled for my dad. He played football and wrestled for my dad when he was in high school in the 60s and 70s. And my dad was always, we would take 3-week trips every summer because he was a teacher, and we'd just camp. And I didn't know, 1st through 8th grade, we went, me, my sister and brother went to private school. He didn't have vouchers back then. And my dad was the only one who worked. My mom would stay at home. I had no idea that we were poor. I thought we loved camping. And so we'd go to 10 states in a 3-week time period. So I grew up with this love of travel. And then I hit high school, and my high school wrestling coach would always say, see the world through wrestling. So he took us to Florida, Tennessee, Mexico, Canada, through that. And then when I got out of high school, it just like expanded from there. And that's one of the big things I tell our kids is you're going to see the world through wrestling. Like this summer, we'll go to wrestling camp in Tennessee, but on the way down, we'll stop and jump off rocks into the water. Right. On the way back, we'll hit a long hike. And many of the kids only go for the travel. Yeah. I've taken, I don't know, 30 or 40 Jeff High kids overseas through wrestling now because of that. We'll make sure they qualify for an overseas event. Yeah. Just, they could go to nationals here, but might as well go to Japan to a tournament.
Those things are priceless. I mean, they may or may not remember most of the things they do in high school, but those experiences, so we've been doing a lot of that with my family too. And I hear the thing too. I mean, even just going to the other states within the United States, people joke about, say, Americans aren't well traveled. Well, the thing is, within our 50 states, we have so many different ecosystems, and like you can go see the mountains, see the desert. It's incredible. There's so much cool stuff to see here. What do you think the coolest place or experience you've been was?
Oh man, definitely the most unique was Mongolia. It's a third world country, but it was amazing. I think it was like being in a National Geographic video every moment. Like they would say, we're going to go to this Buddhist temple. And I'd say, where? And they'd say, that way. And there was no road. And you'd get in a midbus, like, that was very rough, and you'd drive through the plains and you'd drive over a mountain.
Really?
And I remember listening. I had my radio out, and we were listening to Justin Bieber, because they were like, Bieber.
Yeah.
You know, they'd probably like America, Justin Bieber.
Right.
So like my favorite memory is driving with no roads with a wrestling team full of Mongolians listening to that. And, but the most unique experience I had there, to me, was I stayed the night at the coach's house, and their wrestling's their national sport. You know, the whole country, the whole world, the population of Mongolia would fit in Louisville, but it's the biggest, one of the biggest countries in the world land-wise. So you don't see a person for days when you drive. And he's like the richest guy around, but he had no running water, he had no electricity, but the Olympic Committee gave him a house. And so he's letting me sleep on his bed. I'm like, no. And he's like, we're good. Well, in the morning, I go out and there's 18 people getting out of like rusty old cars and stuff they slept in, and they look so happy. And we go to the well, and they're pumping water, and me and about 10 kids are brushing our teeth in the well.
Right.
And that might have been the most fun I had the whole trip, just seeing these kids like they're teaching me words, I'm teaching their words, we're spitting our toothpaste across the ground, and you know, like they had nothing, but they had everything. They were so happy, and that really, you know, makes me feel fortunate. But really, those experiences let you know what is important. Yeah,
100%. Oh, you hear stories all the time about us America giving our technologies and things to certain parts of the country, and they just end up less happy than they were before.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have these things. We introduce so many of these things into our lives unnecessarily. So me and Faith were talking a little bit before you got here about the marketing that you do with the wrestling team, because I think that's something some of our viewers might be interested in hearing. But what is, you walked in the door and threw me a t-shirt when you got here, and you got, so I think you go to a little extra effort to market your team and your program and things like that. So how do you do that, and why do you do it?
Why I do it is just to get kids involved. It's not, to make any money, but I'm not in the finance world or house world or anything, but it's the same thing, right? You want to, I'm trying to gain a commodity, and my commodity is kids. Yeah. So, I went to a class on coaching, I don't know, at this point, 25 years ago. And they said in the business world, you should spend X amount of money on your marketing. Like that should be the largest part of your budget. And instantly I was like, oh man, we got to make t-shirts. We got to have pictures. We got to have posters. So I've always followed that. The most money we spend other than travel is our t-shirts. And so I would think one year we made 23 different t-shirts that we were handing out. Elementary level, it said I wrestle, because I want kids to have that identity. When you hear a kid, my nephew says I'm an exceptional tennis player. I try to humble him and take that out, but he says I'm a tennis player, right? And so I wanted kids to say I wrestle. We try to use the same logo all the time. I'm trying to show the microphone, show the camera. But so this logo right here, when I came to Jeff, I found it in a pile, and it was Robert Rossbottom, a two-time state champ from Jeffersonville, had drawn that his senior year and used it to sell t-shirts to raise money for something. And I saw the print, and I was like, man, that's our emblem. Well, 20-something years go by, and they were like, we got to upgrade our branding at Jeff High. Yeah. So they used that devil. Yeah. And I didn't want to take away from that. So we just kept it. So every single thing we do, somewhere on it has that emblem, whether even if it's a tournament with 64 other teams, that is on there so that it's ours and they know it. And then we have a catchphrase, count on me. One, because it's so easy to fit on everything. But two, I think, when I want people to think of Jeff High Wrestling, I want them to think it's an individual that can be counted on for a job, for a spouse, for a friend. Just I think if there's one thing a kid can come out of my program, the wins and losses don't matter as much. Can I be counted on? So everything we do dang it, not this one, but our singlets, we put count on me somewhere very small on it. And, so when I'm talking to a kid, I'll say like, what's one thing I want you to gain from this? Like, I need to be counted on. Yeah. And that's a very easy talk to have to kids. Like, you're late for practice. Can I count on you? Your friend needed a practice partner. Can I count on you? And then even when they graduate, like, man, I got to apply for this job. What am I going to tell them about myself? Tell them you can be counted on. So those are a couple things that we do right there, marketing. And then we just give them out constantly. Like, a lot of teams will write the school, like, who wants to buy our shirts, and I always send an email out that says who would like to receive a shirt. Right. And I think we gain more money that way. Like, I'm not asking for a donation, but like, you give a t-shirt to a business and they go, we're looking to give away some money. Hey, that guy gave us a t-shirt. Yeah. So doing for others, staying top of mind, doing for others usually comes back on you. Yeah, definitely. So it sounds to me like basically what I take from that is you kind of got two tiers. Number one, if you think about it on a broader scale, what are your big college programs doing? They're building big stadiums and they're signing Nike deals and doing, and all that is to bring kids, right? Yeah. Like you said, you're marketing for kids. I mean, they might have their pick of the litter and they're trying to get the best basketball player, the best whatever, but it's the same concept, right? It's marketing to improve your program. And then the second one, which is culture, basically, is what I'm hearing, the count on me culture, which is a really cool, noble effort. I think, it's awesome to think that, regardless of what these kids come out with, if they go get a scholarship in college or they, do anything past high school with it, they're coming out with that, which is obviously probably better than anything else they're going to come out with. So that's awesome. So along those lines, I just kind of reminded myself of the question, how many kids have you sent off to wrestle in college? Do you know that number? I try to keep track of this just for the marketing purpose. I think we're over 40 wrestlers, but then in my strength and conditioning classes, we've passed the 210 mark in the past 13 years. So, but that's even marketing. You get those people that are successful to talk about your programs. Right. So I'll get and that's what a lot of people don't get is praising. You might have to praise another, seller. I need to praise another sport because I'll have a kid. I remember my best recruiter ever was a quarterback that didn't play football, didn't wrestle his junior year because he was concentrating on football. I had the most linemen I ever had come out because he told them all to wrestle. So even when he didn't wrestle, he was still trusting me. And I think there's something to learn there in marketing or business is treat the others well, and it's going to come back. I don't think there's much better conditioning out there than wrestling. It's pretty hard. If you've never just wrestled with somebody or done jiu-jitsu or something, it takes it out of you. I mean, it's unbelievable. I used to do a lot of that with my buddy Daniel, who you probably know. He went into some fighting stuff and taught me some jiu-jitsu back in college, and that it absolutely drains you. So I know we brushed over it a little bit, but I wanted to get, as part of, we're doing this for the community. So one of the programs I know you offer to the community is this kids program that you do. So I wanted to learn a little more about that. What ages do you do? Does it cost anything to do? When do you do it? So can you give us some more info on that? Let's start with cost. We do. So we have a wrestling club that Luke Smith, Alonzo Shepard, and Dominic Smith all run. They are all former wrestlers that all wrestled in college. One's a fireman, one's a scientist, one's an engineer. So you got these highly successful people running it, which I'm super proud of them. And so for that club, they could sign up as early as 5, but we don't push that because the maturity levels. I'm at a standstill, and we charge an initial fee of $85 and then $20 a month. And if any kid can't afford it, we just waive it. Like it's instant waive. I'm not trying to promote that because we have costs we instill, but we're not trying to make money. So for, if this kid pays it and this kid comes in and says, man, I want to wrestle, I can't afford it. It offsets it. So it's affordable to everybody because we'll never charge if a person just can't. The kid can't help it. So they do that 2 nights a week. You probably have a bunch of other members who'd be willing to pay their fee to do it. I mean, a lot of them, once they know that, say like, hey, I'll pay $1 double, instead of, it's so cheap, $20 a month, I'll pay $40 to make sure some other kid can go. We have a few of those. So they do that 2 nights a week, Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:15, from November through, I'm going to say April. Okay. But we have a second tier to that.
Can anybody join up anytime through that period?
Yep, at any moment. Okay. At any moment. And then the last week of February, through our 7 elementary schools in Jeffersonville, we do a wrestling league, which is we call it league because I want them to say I wrestle. Yeah. Because when they hit high school, they'll say I wrestled for 5 years. Mm-hmm. No, you wrestled 1 week. Yeah. But so the league is 7 practices and 3 meets over the course of 2.5 weeks. Gotcha. And so every single school in Jeffersonville, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade will have a team starting the last week of February. And it's free. Mm-hmm. And then if that's enough for the kid or they can't afford it, they wrestle that. Yeah. And the ones that really want more join on with Luke and Alonzo and Dominique in the evenings.
Well, that's awesome. It's really cool. Well, I think that about wraps up what I wanted to hear from you. I really appreciate you coming in today. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up or you wanted to offer to our audience?
Two things. Yeah. Wrestling president right there. Yeah. They say he never lost a match. Really? So he's one of our famous wrestling presidents. And 2, because Luke will probably listen to this, I do have a great video, if you wanted to attach to the end of this, of Luke is Faith's fiance, of Luke chasing a goose in a bacon outfit when he was little. And we could attach it to the end of this if we need to.
Absolutely. Well, Danny, I appreciate you coming in. I wanted to tag on to the end of this. We kind of mentioned at the beginning, but we do also sell real estate. So if you guys are looking to buy, sell, or invest in the area, definitely reach out to us and let us know. And let us know if you want any more information about the programs thing that Danny's offering. And appreciate you watching.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it.
Yeah.